Part 49. The Sweetness of the Seventies. Author, Chi-Sing Cao. Chapter 483. Chapter 483 It's not the master who's moving, it's me. 481. After Huo Yingjun finished speaking, he pulled Huo Yingqi out without waiting for He Tianatian's reply. Huo Yingjun knew that keeping his sister here and letting Huo Yingqi say a few more words would offend He Tiantian even more. The only way was to get her sister Huo Yingqi away as soon as possible. He Tiantian wasn't angry when she saw someone leaving. People like Huo Yingqi can't tell right from wrong, are stubborn, and live in their own world, which is a kind of tragedy in itself. Facing a miserable person, He Tiantian had no energy to be angry with him. Especially now that Huo Yingjia is unconscious, He Tiantian is even more moodless. Brother Yingjia, please wake up quickly. He Tiantian felt very sad seeing Huo Yingjia like this. Her Yingjia brother has always been upright, graceful, instead of just lying on the bed silently. There was no one in the room, so the Snake King said, "Little Spin Turtle, come out and tell me what's going on." He Tiantian was stunned, with tears in her eyes, as she watched the little turtle appear on Huo Yingjia's shoulder, and asked, "Little turtle, what's going on? You must talk to me carefully." "Wait a minute, I'll go first," asked the Snake King. "Can Brother Yingjia still wake up?" The Snake King is very big and difficult to get out. In his human form, the Snake King didn't want to be seen by He Tiantian, so he could only answer He Tianatian's questions in the barrier. Half of Huo Yingjia's soul has been dispersed. "I wonder if I can take it back," the Snake King said hesitantly. It wasn't that he didn't want to save Huo Yingjia, but that Huo Yingjia's current condition was very bad. "But Brother Yingjia, you can move, you can hear me, why can't you wake up?" He Tiantian asked. "The soul is gone, is there only a shell left?" The little spinner turtle wondered, "That's me moving." "Ah," He Tiantian almost forgot her sadness, "what's going on? Tell me quickly." "Little spinner." The little spin turtle was also very sad and said, "My master and I were attacked. The missile was very powerful and the distance was too close. We didn't have enough time to thicken the barrier. My abilities are limited and I can only protect the master's body. The master's originally unstable soul was washed away. I was also severely injured at that time and was unable to help the master collect the soul. I know that I can't help the master with my own ability. The only one who can help the master is you and the Snake King. So when they mentioned you, I reacted and asked them to pick you up." After hearing this, He Tiantian couldn't bear it anymore and cried loudly, saying, "If Brother Yingjia's soul cannot be found, will he always sleep like this?" Although he didn't want to admit it, the little turtle didn't want to deceive He Tiantian and nodded. He Tiantian lay next to Huo Yingjia and hugged Huo Yingjia's arm tightly. She couldn't help feeling sad. She didn't know what to do except cry. He Tiantian cried, "Huo Yingjia became like this at such a young age." He Tiantian cried. There were many difficulties between her and Huo Yingjia. She thought they could be together happily, but something like this happened. He Tiantian cried, not knowing where to go in the future. "King Snake, please help the master," the little turtle said. "If there is anyone in this world who can help the master, besides you, I can't think of anyone else." He Tiantian cried so sadly that she didn't hear what the little turtle said. The Snake King said nothing. He Tianatian's cry hit his heart hard, making him even more conflicted and hesitant. He Tiantian lay on Huo Yingjia's body and cried, tears falling down her cheeks and onto Huo Yingjia's clothes. Maybe He Tiantian shook Huo Yingjia a little too hard, and he ripped open the buttons of Huo Yingjia's clothes, and his tears fell on the jade pendant on Huo Yingjia's chest. This jade pendant is a dragon pendant, and it is a pair with the one He Tiantian had before. The majestic dragon-shaped pattern moved, changed some shapes, and emitted a dazzling light after coming into contact with He Tianatian's tears. He Tiantian closed her eyes and cried, not seeing the light at all. Just because He Tian Tian didn't see it, it doesn't mean that the little turtle and the Snake King didn't see it. Master, Master. The little spinner climbed up, wanting to see the light. However, the tears on the jade pendant were absorbed and no longer glowed. The Snake King's magical power was much higher than that of the little spin turtle, and he immediately felt a familiar light, which was somewhat similar to the jade pendant around his neck, but also somewhat different. Stop crying! The Snake King was upset by He Tian's crying and scolded, if you want him to never wake up for the rest of his life, just keep crying. Ah! He Tian heard the Snake King's scolding and quickly covered her mouth. Maybe it was too sudden. He Tian was choked by a puff of air in her chest, hiccup, hiccup. He Tian was worried that the Snake King would regret it, so she covered her mouth and stared at her big, red, watery eyes. At the same time, he kept burping. He Tian got out of the way and stopped blocking Huo Yingzhe. The Snake King came out of the barrier. His body was inconvenient, so he used a human form. The first thing I did when I came out was to wave my hand and set up a barrier. Looking into the room from the outside, there was only He Tian and no one else inside. As soon as the Snake King came out, He Tian was stunned again. She walked to the Snake King and looked at the humanoid Snake King who was more than a head taller than her. She said nonchalantly, "Snake King, how did you become so tall?" He Tian just walked behind the Snake King and did not see the Snake King's face. She only visually noticed that the Snake King was very tall. Also, the Snake King is actually wearing a crisp suit, shiny black leather shoes, and neat short hair. Even though there is no front view, the scene where the Snake King appears is much more exciting than the fat baby with a big red belly band who transformed into a human form for the first time. The Snake King at that time was chubby, like. What's even more funny about the boy in the New Year pictures is that at that time, the Snake King had no other clothes except a big red belly band. He was just a bare-butt kid, and He Tian made some clothes for him. These clothes and shoes are very exquisite. They were probably obtained from a clothing store in New York, USA. Are you short? The Snake King turned around and looked at He Tian who was 2 steps away. He Tian was stunned again, and finally saw the appearance of the Snake King clearly. Fair skin, slender single eyelids, straight bridge of nose, and thin lips give people a sinister feeling. He Tian is familiar with the Snake King, but she also feels that such a Snake King is a bit unfamiliar. Standing next to the Snake King is very stressful. Snake King, you are so handsome, He Tian said, can you save brother Yingzhe? The Snake King sauntered up to Huo Yingzhe's hospital bed, his slender eyes narrowed to just a slit. Others couldn't see his eyes, and naturally they didn't know what he was thinking. The Sweetness of the Seventies. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 484. 482. The Snake King was filled with emotions. He thought back to the time when every time he saw Huo Yingzhe, he could only hide in the barrier and not be able to get out, or once he came out, he couldn't get in. As long as Huo Yingzhe appears, he becomes a humble little pitiful person. At that time, he vowed that he would work hard to become stronger so that Huo Yingzhe would be afraid of him when he saw him in the future. However, now that Huo Yingzhe's consciousness has collapsed, he can stand in front of him openly and become a strong man, while Huo Yingzhe is just a living dead. Logically speaking, he should be very happy, but he was not as happy and excited as he imagined. To be truly strong is not to escape, but to face difficulties. Selfishly, he hoped that Huo Yingzhe would die like this, or remain unconscious like this, so that he could have He Tian all by himself. Maybe He Tian only has a few decades to live, but he also wants to accompany He Tian through this period of life, and hopes that He Tian's life will be completed by him. However, when he saw He Tian's tears, he knew that all this was his wishful thinking. He Tian has always been proud that it does not belong to him. If Huo Yingzhe dies, he will be a lifelong memory in He Tianatian's heart. If Huo Yingzhi does not die, He Tiantian will always be with him. So after hesitating for a while, he decided to save Huo Yingzhi first. From a strong point of view, the Snake King hoped to have a fair duel with Huo Yingzhi. If Huo Yingzhi dies like this, or remains a living dead, Huo Yingzhi will become his inner demon for the rest of his life, and even affect his cultivation and tribulation. So he must save Huo Yingzhi. I can give it a try, the Snake King said coldly. He reached out and took out a jade pendant from Huo Yingzhi's clothes. He pulled it hard and the thread broke. He put it in the palm of his hand. The Snake King took off the phoenix pendant from his neck, put the two jade pendants together, then looked at He Tiantian and said, "Cry, cry loudly." He Tianatian's eyes were sore and she didn't understand why the Snake King said that. "Hurry up and cry. I don't have that much time to waste outside with you. If you want Huo Yingzhi to wake up, hurry up and shed more tears," the Snake King said impatiently. He was worried that if he waited a little longer, he will regret it. He Tiantian was very sad before and could not help but shed tears, but after being scolded by the Snake King, He Tiantian could not cry anymore. At this time, the little spin turtle climbed onto He Tianatian's arm and bit it hard. He Tiantian felt pain, and tears came up again, and several drops fell on the dragon and phoenix pendants. The Snake King placed two jade pendants on Huo Yingzhi's body and waited quietly. I saw white smoke rising from the two jade pendants, not light, gradually expanding, and in just a dozen puffs, a thin layer of smoke enveloped Huo Yingzhi's body, floating here and there. Even though he was used to seeing incredible scenes, He Tiantian was still shocked when seeing such a scene. "What are we doing?" He Tiantian asked in a low voice. She was very curious. "Shh." Snake King made a shushing gesture. He Tiantian quickly closed her mouth and waited quietly for a miracle. After about a moment, the layer of mist surrounding Huo Yingzhi slowly dissipated. When the mist was about to dissipate, the little spinner gulped down the remaining mist, and it actually swallowed most of it. The Snake King reached out and took away two jade pendants and said, "That's it for today, continue tomorrow." After saying that, the Snake King entered the barrier and ignored He Tiantian. He Tiantian saw that the Snake King was gone, and that the Snake King had cut off her connection with the barrier. She could not ask the Snake King, so she could only ask the little spinner. "Little spinner turtle, can you explain to me?" He Tiantian asked, looking at the little spinner turtle with a round belly. The little turtle was very excited and said, "Tiantian, King Snake used two pieces of ancient sacred jade to replenish his master's spiritual consciousness. Although the speed is slow, I can feel that the ray of spiritual consciousness left by the master has become a lot bigger. As time goes by, master can wake up. Okay, I have absorbed some residual spiritual power and have to practice hard." After saying that, the little spinner turtle disappeared and entered the barrier created by the little spinner turtle himself. There were only He Tiantian and Huo Yingzhi in the ward. He Tiantian helped Huo Yingzhi button up and cover him with the quilt, then held Huo Yingzhi's hand, kissed Huo Yingzhi on the face, and said softly, "Brother Yingzhi, you have to be strong, no matter what, I will accompanying you." After the grief just now, He Tiantian has understood her own feelings. As long as Huo Yingzhi lived, she would stay with him and take care of him. If Huo Yingzhi is destined to be like this for the rest of his life, then she will take care of him for the rest of his life. He Tiantian didn't know if Huo Yingzhi would have suffered such a disaster in his previous life, but she also knew that Huo Yingzhi's life would definitely not be easy. There are subjective and objective reasons why they didn't come together. In this life, she has experienced these things, and she will not change easily. Brother Yingzhi was able to survive the disaster in his previous life, but with her by his side this time, Brother Yingzhi can too. At this time, a nurse came in with hot water. "Comrade, please get up. I want to help Comrade Huo clean his body," the little nurse said softly, very politely. It's just the nurse's job to come over and clean up, but why are you blushing? He Tian was unhappy when she thought of Huo Yingji's slim figure when dressed and her fleshy figure when undressed. In addition, the young nurse is about the same age as He Tian. Although she has a professional ethics and has done this kind of work many times, she still has some thoughts when she sees the young man's body and the patient is still so handsome. He Tian thought of this and said, I am Comrade Huo's fiancé. I should do this kind of work. Ah, the little nurse was stunned, with a bit of embarrassment on her face. Isn't this bad? This is my job. He Tian was extremely jealous, and said, there are differences between men and women. We are an unmarried couple, so it's better. It's too forced for you to do such a thing. I'm afraid you don't know how to do it and it's not good for Comrade Huo. The little nurse insisted and disagreed. At this time, Zhao Huan came over to check the ward. He Tian asked, sister-in-law, can I wipe Yingji's body? Zhao Huan was stunned and said, these are done by the nurse, but Yingji's health is not serious, you can help clean it. After all, you are an unmarried couple, so it is okay to do these things. Zhao Huan already knew from her grandfather and grandmother that Huo Yingji and He Tian were not only engaged, but their marriage application report had been approved, and they just needed a marriage certificate. He Tian stepped forward and took the basin from the little nurse's hand, saying, thank you very much for taking care of my fiancé. No. You're welcome. The little nurse stuttered a little, I'll come get the basin in a minute. Thank you. He Tian thanked her and watched the nurse leave. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 485. 483. Looking at the little nurse's somewhat panicked steps, Zhao Huan frowned. Zhao Huan took Huo Yingji's blood pressure and found that his pulse was better than before. After recording it in his notebook, he spoke to He Tian. Tian, are you tired? Zhao Huan asked. If you are tired, you can go to my dormitory and take a nap first. He Tian shook her head and said, I'm not tired. Sister-in-law, you don't have to worry about me. Well, if you need anything, you can come to me. Zhao Huan said, I still have work to do, so I'm going out first. Thank you, sister-in-law, He Tian said politely. She had to trouble Zhao Huan these days, and she was grateful to Zhao Huan. After Zhao Huan left, He Tian closed the ward door and bolted it before wiping Huo Yingji's body. He Tian carefully helped Huo Yingji wipe his face, neck, arms, back, and chest. When it only touched the lower body, He Tian was stunned. What should we do? He Tian was a little nervous, but she thought that if she didn't want to do this job, she would have to let the little nurse do it. Her fiancé was seen naked, more than once. What a disadvantage she suffered. Thinking of this, He Tian gritted her teeth and took off Huo Yingji's pants. Because Huo Yingji was unconscious, Huo Yingji had to be given infusions every morning and evening to maintain the nutrients his body needed. The infusion was given, but the ureter also had to be inserted. He Tian was a little shy at first, but she felt very distressed when she saw Huo Yingji's lower body suffering such pain. As for those who are shy and distressed, they have long been thrown into Java. He Tian carefully washed and wiped Huo Yingji clean, and then put Huo Yingji into a clean hospital gown. He Tian poured out the water and took the enamel basin back. He would directly get hot water to wash Huo Yingji tomorrow. He Tian took out the cosmetics her grandmother had sent her from her bag, squeezed a little moisturizer and applied it on Huo Yingji. She took out a comb and combed Huo Yingji's hair. If possible, she would like to wash Huo Yingji's hair tomorrow. He Tian found nail clippers from her bag and cut Huo Yingji's fingernails and toenails. When Zhang Lifang came over, she saw He Tiantian sitting sideways on the bed, cutting Huo Yingji's toenails. Alas, Zhang Lifang has been living in a haze these days. She has done nothing for her son except crying. She is still sweet and attentive. It's no wonder that my son likes Tiantian. When Tiantian comes, my son is different. Tiantian, wash your hands quickly and go eat. I'll cut it. Zhang Lifang put down the lunchbox in her hand and said hurriedly. He Tiantian said softly, Aunt Zhang, please stop touching it. There is only one nail left. It will be fine soon. When Zhang Lifang saw He Tiantian say this, she sat on the stool and looked at her son lovingly, then at He Tiantian. What a perfect match. I hope my son can wake up, otherwise a good girl like Tiantian will have no fate with their family. He Tiantian finished cutting, put Huo Yingji's feet in place, covered them with a thin blanket, and then went to the bathroom to wash her hands. When He Tiantian came out of the bathroom, Zhang Lifang had already helped He Tiantian take out the food and said, Tiantian, eat it while it's hot. He Tiantian was indeed hungry, but she hadn't felt it before because she was sad. Now knowing that Huo Yingji had hope of waking up, He Tiantian felt very hungry, but she couldn't go out to buy food, so she could only continue to wait. Fortunately, we didn't have to wait long before Aunt Zhang delivered the meal. He Tiantian was hungry and was not polite. She ate several mouthfuls before she remembered and asked, Aunt Zhang, have you eaten yet? After eating, you can eat it yourself, Zhang Lifang said, looking at He Tiantian lovingly. Hearing what Zhang Lifang said, He Tiantian took a big bite to eat. The food was huge, and He Tiantian ate it all, but she was only 70% full. But this is Yanjing, not Nanji, nor Kijia village. He Tiantian is embarrassed to say that she is not full. Are you full? Zhang Lifang asked. If you are not, I will buy you some more. I'm full, He Tiantian said, embarrassed to say she wasn't full. Anyway, she had meal tickets and money, so she could buy them later. That's good, Zhang Lifang said. Tiantian, your father is resting at home. You can go back and have a rest. I will be here in the afternoon, Zhang Lifang said, feeling very sorry for Tiantian. She came over immediately after receiving the telegram. Well, I must be very tired after just taking the train for 3 days and 4 nights. He Tiantian thought that she hadn't taken a shower for a long time and felt a little itchy. She nodded and said, Aunt Zhang, I'll go back and take a shower first and change clothes. I'll take care of brother Yingji at night. No, you can come over tomorrow morning, Zhang Lifang said. There are so many people at home, she can't exhaust He Tiantian. He Tiantian is a piece of meat in his son's heart, so he can't be careless in the slightest. Now Zhang Lifang puts almost all her hopes on He Tiantian, but she doesn't dare to tire He Tiantian. I can't sleep even when I go back, He Tiantian said. By the way, Aunt Zhang, where is my dad? Where should I rest? Oh, look at my head, Zhang Lifang smiled bitterly. There is a guard outside the door, I will ask him to take you back. By the way, Tiantian, stay away from Huo Yingqi from now on, that girl is not in her right mind. Compared with her future daughter-in-law, Zhang Lifang was annoyed by her unreliable niece. Thinking of what Huo Yingqi had done before, Zhang Lifang was very angry. I took note of it, He Tiantian said. Anyway, she was confident now and wasn't afraid of anyone. Zhang Lifang saw He Tiantian outside the door and told the guards to take He Tiantian home. He Tiantian came to the Huo family's old house. Mr. Huo and Mrs. Huo were in the living room, talking to He Jingyu. The bodyguard brought He Tiantian in. Mrs. Huo quickly got up and said, Tiantian, have you eaten? Have eaten, Grandma, He Tiantian said, putting the salute aside. Then you must be very tired. Go upstairs and have a rest. Come on, I'll take you to your room, Mrs. Huo said, stepping forward and holding He Tiantian's little hand. The hot water is ready and will be delivered to your room right away. Only after taking a bath can you sleep well. Thank you, Grandma, He Tian said. Although it was only the second time to meet Mrs. Huo, her grandmother's kindness did not make her feel strange. When Mrs. Huo saw He Tian, she temporarily forgot about her grandson's misfortune, which was strange. No wonder the second child and his wife keep saying how good their future daughter-in-law is. This is indeed very good. Anyway, she has never seen a better girl than He Tian. Not only the appearance, but also the temperament. Tian, you can rest, treat this as your own home, don't be polite, Mrs. Huo said, and then helped He Tian close the door. Thank you, Grandma, He Tian said across the doorway. Brother Yingjia's grandmother was an interesting old lady. The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 486. 484. After a while, the nanny brought hot water and poured it into the bathtub in the bathroom. Thank you, He Tian smiled and thanked the two people who helped carry the water. Miss He, you're welcome, the nanny smiled. The hot water is ready, Miss He, you wash up. After washing, just pull the lid open and the water will automatically drain out. Well, I'll remember it. Thank you for your hard work, He Tian said politely, very polite. He Tian thanked the people who provided her with services. After the two went out, they looked at each other and hurried to report to the old lady that the second young master's fiancée was a good girl. He Tian took a quick bath and felt much more relaxed. He Tian packed her gifts, then changed into a shirt, blue pants and a pair of sneakers on her feet. Although there were nice clothes in the package, Huo Yingjia hadn't woken up yet, so He Tian couldn't wear too fancy clothes. However, when Brother Yingjia woke up, she could wear them for Brother Yingjia to see. Although He Tian was sleepy, she couldn't sleep. She changed her clothes, let her hair down, took her bag, and prepared to go to the hospital. When Mrs. Huo saw that He Tian didn't rest, she hurriedly asked, Tian, why don't you rest? Are you dissatisfied with the room? No, Grandma, He Tian shook her head. I am very satisfied with the room, but I am worried that Brother Yingjia can't sleep, so I want to go see him. Hey, you are thoughtful, Mrs. Huo said. Okay, I'll let the bodyguard take you there, and you must come back to rest at night. Huo Yingqi was also in the living room and saw He Tian, and her face changed immediately. This woman actually entered the house. This is her home, and she doesn't want to see He Tian. However, thinking of her grandfather and grandmother being very good to He Tian, better than to her, Huo Yingqi was angry, but she didn't dare to say much, and immediately adjusted her expression to prevent others from seeing her true thoughts. But she didn't know that after all, she was young and could control her expression, but she couldn't control her eyes. Huo Yingqi's dissatisfaction fell into the eyes of Mr. Huo and Huo Jekan. Fortunately, He Jingyu was not here, otherwise He Jingyu would definitely think too much and feel dissatisfied. After He Tian greeted everyone, she followed the guard to the hospital. Huo Jekan didn't want to stay at home, so he went to pick up his wife to rest, and he stayed there to watch over his son at night. Seeing that his second son had left, Mr. Huo looked at Huo Yingqi and said slowly, Yingqi, didn't you understand what happened in the previous lesson? Huo Yingqi was stunned, and hurriedly smiled, Grandpa, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't stand up to outsiders and hurt my family. Mr. Huo looked at Huo Yingqi steadily, and after a while he said, I hope you remember what you said now, don't let me down. I remember, Grandpa, Huo Yingqi said. She didn't want to go to such a difficult place again, she wanted to stay in Yanjing. If she offended her grandparents this time, her mother probably wouldn't be able to do anything. Mr. Huo nodded and got up and went upstairs. Mrs. Huo glanced at Huo Yingqi, very disappointed, and helped her father upstairs to rest. There was only Huo Yingqi in the living room, sitting there alone. Song Chunli came in from outside and saw her daughter sitting in a chair in a daze. She asked, "Yinki, why are you sitting here alone? Where are your grandfather and grandmother?" Huo Yinki said with a dry voice and a wry smile. Grandpa and grandmother went back to the room after that. Huo Yinki covered her face and said nothing. "Yinki, what's wrong?" Song Chunli asked, and walked quickly to her daughter. "I think my grandfather and grandmother don't like me anymore." Huo Yinki choked up. Logically, she was the youngest in the family and the only girl, so she should be loved. Song Chunli felt sorry for her daughter. With her husband's occasional reminders, she understood the thoughts of her parents-in-law. In this family, the masters are still Mr. Huo and the old lady. "Do you remember when your grandfather and grandmother changed?" Song Chunli asked. What her daughter did before was indeed wrong. Although her daughter has changed now, she still hasn't let it go. Huo Yinki was stunned, thought for a while, and said, "It seems that in 1971, my second brother came back and said that he had a partner. Yuan was very sad, and You just acted on your own and helped Zhou Yuan without considering your second brother's feelings." Seeing that her daughter didn't continue, Song Chunli helped her to continue. Huo Yinki nodded with difficulty. In fact, her second brother loved her very much before. But after he had a partner, he didn't care about her as a sister. "You know that what your grandfather and grandmother hate most is that their own family members harm their own family members," Song Chunli said. "You did that and hurt your second brother and brought trouble to your second brother. And that Zhou Yuan, she used you, but you didn't know it. We reminded you, but you were stubborn and did that thing again. Your grandfather and grandmother's attitude towards you has changed, and you haven't realized your mistake yet." Huo Yinki's face was a little pale after hearing this. "Mom, I actually feel sorry for Yuan. After all, we grew up together," Huo Yinki said, trying to defend herself. "You grew up with Zhou Yuan, but your second brother is your cousin. Apart from your brother, he is your second brother." Song Chunli got even angrier when she heard her daughter say that. Why didn't it make sense? "But..." Huo Yinki stuttered. "What else? Zhou Yuan is not as obedient as she appears to be. The Zhou family almost destroyed our Huo family last time. You are lucky to be able to talk here peacefully. If you don't distinguish between enemies and friends, you won't even know how you died in the future," Song Chunli said sternly. She didn't know what was so good about Zhou Yuan. She had given her daughter so many magic potions. At this point, she was still speaking for that Zhou Yuan. Seeing that her mother was also angry, Huo Yinki had to lower her head and said softly, "I'm sorry, Mom, I know I was wrong, and I remember what you said." Compared with her good friend Zhou Yuan, Huo Yinki believed that He Tian was the one who was two-faced. After all, she was her daughter. Song Chunli said something harsh, and her daughter admitted her mistake. She couldn't continue to criticize her, and said, "I know you have a knot in your heart, but you also know that He Tian is your second brother's fiancé, and we are a family. You can't do that in the future. Let the previous things go, don't take it to heart." "Well, I know, we are a family," Huo Yinki said. "Mom, don't worry, I will never do such a thing again." "Just remember it," Song Chunli said, "you are not young anymore. This time I come back, I will arrange a job for you in the hospital. After a while, I will arrange a marriage for you. If you get married soon, you won't think about so many things." "Mom, I still want to accompany you for a few more years." Huo Yinki blushed, and was a little embarrassed when her mother talked about marriage. "You are not young anymore, you are already 23 this year." Song Chunli sighed. "By the way, do you have someone you like in your heart? If so, tell me, can your father and I take a look first?" The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 487. Huo Yinki's mind flashed with the man who had saved her, but that man was already married. "Mom, don't ask any more," Huo Yinki said, and ran away. Song Chunli saw her daughter and thought she was embarrassed, so she didn't chase her. She would find a chance to ask later. At the same time, Song Chunli was also thinking in her mind which young man would be suitable for her daughter. Just as Huo Yinki was thinking about it, somewhere in Yanjing, a conspiracy was brewing. "It's really interesting," the man was excited, pinching the woman's face with his fingers. "Zhou Yuan, you were so arrogant before, didn't you look down on me? You also insulted me. Why are you asking me for help now? This woman is Zhou Yuan." Zhou Yuan smiled and said, "A fallen phoenix is worse than a chicken. You ask me this, don't you just want to trample on my dignity? As long as you help me, I'm willing to do anything." The man leaned sideways, looked at the woman, and smiled. "You are straightforward. You have changed a lot. After staying in a place like that for 3 years, dignity no longer exists." Zhou Yuan said, "If I hadn't met you, I might have been defiled by that fat man. Instead of getting the advantage of that dead fat pig, it's better to be with someone who once liked me. Although there is no dignity, at least I can go back to where I used to live. The Zhou family has been destroyed, and it's useless for you to come back." The man said softly, "You know, I can't help you, and I don't have the ability to help you. Zheng Rong, I know that your Zheng family and the Huo family are two camps. You have been looking for an opportunity to defeat the Huo family, right?" Zhou Yuan said. "They are all in the same circle, and she knows the grudges and grievances between the families. Haha, the Huo family is in the limelight now, and our Zheng family can only avoid it." Zheng Rong said, "We have no ability to compete with the Huo family. Your plan to use the Zheng family to defeat the Huo family is probably not going to work. It's not that I want to use the Zheng family, but I can be used as a pawn to deal with the Huo family." Zhou Yuan said. Zheng Rong brought her back from Yun province and then possessed her body. In this way, the deal between them is over. The Zhou family is finished, and it is of no use to the Zheng family. Maybe because of helping her, they will be implicated by the Zhou family. In order to let Zheng Rong continue to work for her, she must have new actions, and they must be of interest to the Zheng family. Although the conflict between the Zheng family and the Huo family is not known to everyone, everyone in the circle knows it. The Huo family is her enemy and the enemy of the Zheng family. She can definitely find opportunities for cooperation with the enemy of the enemy. Chess piece. Zheng Rong looked Zhou Yuan up and down. "Except for your body, I don't think you have any capital." "Haha, don't underestimate me." Zhou Yuan's small hand gently stroked Zheng Rong's strong chest muscles. "You know, women are much more cruel than men when they are cruel." After a while, it calmed down again. "Tell me, what do you want to do?" Zheng Rong had some expectations for Zhou Yuan. It was impossible for him to marry Zhou Yuan. She was just a plaything, or perhaps it could be said that it was an obsession when he was young. "Of course, I will start with the stupidest person in the Huo family," Zhou Yuan said, very confident that she had a plan in mind to tell Zheng Rong about this matter. The stupidest person in the Huo family, Zheng Rong was puzzled. Who? The elders in the family always said that the Huo family was a nest of foxes. The old foxes were cunning, the young foxes were not easy to mess with, and the fox cubs were even more terrible. "Haha," Zhou Yuan smiled, "of course it's Huo Yinki." "Oh," Zheng Rong suddenly realized, "by the way, I remember that not long after the Zhou family was destroyed, Huo Yinki went home for the new year and asked around for news about you. It's rare that she is sincere to you. Wouldn't it be too inhumane for you to use her?" Zhou Yuan listened and smiled contemptuously. "If she is not a member of the Huo family, maybe I won't use her. But she is my enemy. Even if she has been the best to me, the Huo family is the one who hurt our Zhou family the most, and I will not forgive her. Using her, I can get revenge. Why not use her?" Haha, you can take it and let it go, Zheng Rong said, looking at Zhou Yuanyuan sideways. I have nothing, what else can I take, and what can't I let go? Zhou Yuanyuan said, I know Huo Yingqi, and there is only one way to deal with the Huo family, that is to frame the Huo family for treason, just like that person some time ago, and ruin their reputation. You already have a plan, Zheng Rong said, this is indeed a good way. I am confident that I can put the things in the Huo family, but I have no chance to touch those things now. As long as you give me the things, I can use Huo Yingqi to put the things in the Huo family. At that time, the evidence will be conclusive, and then I can bribe a few people under the Huo family. At that time, the Huo family will be traitors that everyone wants to kill, Zhou Yuanyuan said, how about this plan? Very good, Zheng Rong said, let me think about it. Huo Yingzhe is unconscious. Now the Huo family's attention is all on Huo Yingzhe, and they will not pay too much attention to Huo Yingqi, Zhou Yuanyuan said, this is a very rare opportunity. Once lost, it may not be found in the future. You are right, wait for my news. Zheng Rong nodded, got up and put on his clothes. He has a wife at home, so he can't stay overnight outside. Okay, I'll wait for your news, Zhou Yuanyuan said, and did not try to keep Zheng Rong. She knew that she was not qualified to keep him, and she couldn't keep him. Although she had lost her dignity, Zhou Yuanyuan didn't want to wrong herself too much. When she got revenge, she would be free. Human relationships in the world are hot and cold. Zhou Yuanyuan has experienced too much and is tired of the world. But when she thought of the destruction of the Zhou family and the tragic death of her relatives, Zhou Yuanyuan gave up the idea of committing suicide. She wants to live well, and use all means to attack the Huo family. After Zheng Rong returned, he told his family about the matter. The old man of the Zheng family thought about it all night and agreed to Zhou Yuanyuan's plan. The Zheng family had to find a way to get those things, but they needed Zhou Yuanyuan to give them to Huo Yingqi and bring them to the Huo family. Even if it was discovered, it was Zhou Yuanyuan who took it out, not the Zheng family. Don't have close contact with that woman, otherwise our Zheng family will be found out. Mr. Zheng knew what his youngest son was thinking and reminded him. Zhou Yuanyuan was not a simple woman. He was worried that Zhou Yuanyuan would retaliate and bring harm to the Zheng family. Zheng Rong smiled and said, Father, please don't worry, we can avenge our eldest brother and mother. I hope so, but you still have to be careful. Mr. Zheng explained that the Zheng family couldn't afford it. Yes, Father, Zheng Rong responded. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 488. 486. He Tian arrived at the hospital, and Zhang Lifang was secretly sad. Aunt Zhang, you go back and rest, I'll stay here with brother Yingzhe. He Tian said, you've been tired these days and lost so much weight, you have to take care of yourself. Zhang Lifang saw He Tian coming over and asked, didn't I tell you to rest at home? Why are you back again? He Tian said softly, I couldn't sleep at home, so I changed my clothes and came here. Uncle Huo, please take Aunt Zhang back to rest. Brother Yingzhe is the most filial. If he wakes up and sees Aunt Zhang so haggard, he will definitely feel distressed. You girl. Zhang Lifang was touched. Her future daughter-in-law is so considerate. Huo Jekan smiled and said, since Tian has said so, let's go back. Let Tian and Yingzhe be alone together. You only know that this boy loves Tian, so we won't disturb them. Okay, then I'll go back first. Zhang Lifang nodded. Tian, if you need anything, go directly to your sister-in-law. Well, I know, Aunt Zhang. He Tian agreed. This is a hospital. Of course, if there is something, you have to find Zhao Huan. Huo Jekan took his wife Zhang Lifang back and had a good rest. His wife has been too hard during this period. He Tian accompanied Huo Yingzhe and whispered this. He Tian pinched Huo Yingzhe's nose and pinched his face. When Zhao Huan came in, he saw such a warm scene. It must be said that the future sister-in-law has a good relationship with the second brother. Although she and her husband Huo Yingzhe also have a deep relationship, they are both introverted people and will not do such intimate actions. Sister-in-law, you've worked hard, he Tian said softly, standing up and making way for Zhao Huan to check. Zhao Huan nodded and said, it's not hard, this is my job. When you came, I found that my second brother's condition was better than yesterday, which shows that my second brother has always had you in his heart. He Tian blushed slightly and lowered her head in embarrassment. Zhao Huan was also embarrassed to say it. After all, he Tian was still a girl, she would be shy, and couldn't say it too bluntly. Okay, I'm going out. If you feel bored, you can go out for a walk, Zhao Huan said, there are not many patients in the hospital. I can help take care of them. He Tian came to take care of Huo Yingzhe, not to relieve boredom. She shook her head and said, thank you, sister-in-law. I'll stay here. Okay, I'll go out first. Zhao Huan had a better impression of He Tian. After Zhao Huan left, He Tian was a little sleepy. She held Huo Yingzhe's hand and fell asleep beside Huo Yingzhe's bed. At night, He Tian wanted to keep watch here, but was called back home by Huo Jekan. Tian is a girl, and she is in a hurry. It's very hard. How can she let a little girl keep watch? Under everyone's warm care, He Tian returned to the Huo family's old house to rest. At night, He Tian was worried about Huo Yingzhe and couldn't sleep at all, so she called the Snake King, Gilu me, Snake King, come out quickly. Are you sure you want me to go out? Snake King said sinisterly. Although he wanted to go out, he didn't want to be labeled as taking advantage of others. It was night now. He Tian was wearing pajamas. Thinking that Snake King had grown into a big man, it was not appropriate for a man and a woman to be alone together. She quickly said, Snake King, you'd better not come out. We can talk in our minds. Well, ask Snake King said lazily, playing with two jade pendants in his hand. Today, because she was worried about Huo Yingzhe, she just cried. He Tian had many questions. Now she had time and she couldn't sleep, so she might as well ask more questions. Snake King, why did you take those two jade pendants? He Tian asked. Her jade pendant had been taken away by Snake King, and Huo Yingzhe's was also taken away by him. This was their engagement ceremony. The strange phenomenon during the day made He Tian puzzled. This is the ancient divine jade, Snake King said, it is very helpful to this king. He Tian looked a bit embarrassed. Snake King, this jade pendant is useful to you, I don't mind taking it. However, Brother Yingzhe is in a coma now, I hope to treat Brother Yingzhe first. As long as Brother Yingzhe wakes up, I can give you two jade pendants, that's fine. He Tian was worried that the Snake King would focus on cultivation and not treat Huo Yingzhe. Humph, the Snake King snorted coldly. In fact, what He Tian said hit the nail on the head. He was indeed hesitating whether to occupy this jade pendant. Snake King, you are the omnipotent Snake King, He Tian said, please save Brother Yingzhe. I'm already treating him, but he doesn't have the ability to absorb more spiritual power now, so I'll continue tomorrow, the Snake King said. If he didn't agree, He Tian would keep pestering him. In this case, he would have no way to practice. Thank you, Snake King, He Tian said, as long as you save Brother Yingzhe, he is so capable, he will definitely find more ancient divine jade for you to practice. We are mutually beneficial. Mutual benefit. The Snake King smiled bitterly. In He Tian's heart, they were just partners. Alas, What was he still expecting? Don't worry, I will save him, the Snake King said, and then cut off the connection. He Tian was angry. How could the Snake King do this? She had many other questions. Before she finished speaking, he ran away again. With deep resentment, he Tian fell asleep. In the dream, he Tian tortured the Snake King over and over again, and finally the Snake King got angry and beat her. He Tian was very sad. When she woke up, it was already the next day. He Tian looked at the clock on the wall and saw that it was already 6 o'clock, just in time to get up. He Tian has washed up and prepared breakfast. Did you bring it over? He Jingyu was also downstairs. After dinner, he went to replace He Tian. When they arrived at the hospital, He Jingyu and He Tian had a chance to be alone together. He Jingyu felt conflicted and hesitant. Huo Yingji's behavior made him very worried. Although he admired Huo Yingji as a boy, compared to his daughter's lifelong happiness, it was not that important. Tian, what if Huo Yingji never wakes up? He Jingyu asked softly. He was worried that his daughter would be stubborn and not give up. He Tian was stunned and thought for a moment, Dad, brother Yingji will definitely wake up. I said what if, He Jingyu emphasized his tone. Then I will accompany him, He Tian said. This was not motivated, but carefully considered. The combined years of past and present life made He Tian think about things more clearly. As long as Huo Yingji doesn't die, she will wait for him. The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Xing Cao. Chapter 489. 487. He Jingyu knew his daughter would say that. Hey, you are only in your 20s, He Jingyu smiled helplessly, you are too young, and your great life has not yet begun. You have to think about your future, and you have to think about us. Dad, stop talking. Now that brother Yingji is like this, it's not good for us to say such things. He Tian shook his head and said, it's also inappropriate. He Jingyu nodded and stopped talking, but he still had the same point of view and hoped that his daughter would be happy. Huo Yingji survived, and the marriage continued. If Huo Yingji continues to live and die like this, he will not agree. This is human nature, and he cannot just watch his daughter be lonely for the rest of her life. When they arrived at the ward, Zhang Lifang was wiping Huo Yingji's face. When she saw He Tian and He Jingyu coming, she quickly let them in. Aunt Zhang, Uncle Huo, you go back and rest, we are here, He Tian said, although there is a small bed in the ward, it is not comfortable. Thank you for your hard work, Zhang Lifang said, cleaning up Huo Yingji before leaving with her husband. He Jingyu sat on a chair on the side, staring at He Tian with big eyes. In the end, He Jingyu couldn't stand the atmosphere and said, I'm going out for a walk, you can stay here. Well, Dad, then you go out for a walk, He Tian breathed a sigh of relief. She was worried that her father would say that again. She knew her father was doing it for her own good, but she still couldn't accept it. After He Jingyu left, He Tian was the only one in the ward. Just when He Tian was about to ask the Snake King to come out and help Huo Yingji recover, Zhao Huan and Dr. Zhang came, checked him over, explained a few words, and left. He Tian locked the door and called the Snake King. Like yesterday, the Snake King made He Tian shed a few tears on 2 jade pendants, and then placed the jade pendants on Huo Yingji's chest. After a while, Huo Yingji was surrounded by such smoke. Just like yesterday. Most of the remaining smoke was eaten by the little spinner turtle. Compared with yesterday, He Tian found that Huo Yingji looked better than yesterday. This is also a good sign. This situation lasted for 5 days. By the 6th day, He Tian had become accustomed to the movements of the Snake King and the little spin turtle. Now Huo Yingji was almost the same as an ordinary person, and the nutrient solution was more than half less than before, which gave He Tian hope. Zhang Lifang felt unwell and went back to rest at night, but He Tian insisted on coming over to keep watch. At night, after He Tian cleaned up Huo Yingzhe, he took out the folding bed from one side and slept on it. However, at midnight, Huo Yingzhe suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes are burning, his gaze is like a torch. After about a few minutes, Huo Yingzhe's eyes moved and he looked around carefully. This was a completely unfamiliar environment. Why is he here? What are these things around? He Tian slept uncomfortably, turned over and muttered a few times in her sleep. Huo Yingzhe's eyes fell on the person beside the bed. Was this the person who executed him? Thinking of this, Huo Yingzhe grabbed the person under the thin blanket. He Tian fell into a drowsy sleep and felt like someone was grabbing her body. He Tian still knew subconsciously that this was in a hospital and no one would do this. She thought it was a dream and did not open her eyes. He Tian drooped his head. Huo Yingzhe didn't see He Tian's face clearly, but it looked familiar. With the other hand, he pinched He Tian's face, and then he could see He Tian's appearance clearly. Huo Yingzhe was shocked at this sight. This is Fairy Yun. Yuner. Huo Yingzhe released his slender hand holding He Tian's chin. Huo Yingzhe's name was Yuner, not Tian. Yes, Huo Yingzhe here is the god of Changling. Or it can only be said that a ray of consciousness from Changling God awakened in Huo Yingzhe's body. He Tian was picked up and pinched in the face. No matter how deeply she slept, she was about to wake up. He Tian opened her eyes and saw that Huo Yingzhe had woken up. No matter how rough Huo Yingzhe's actions were now, he hugged Huo Yingzhe with both hands. Brother Yingzhe, He Tian choked with excitement, you finally woke up, finally woke up. The god of Changling was stunned. Brother Yingzhe, who is this? Is it him? You. Lord Changling frowned. He was worried that he would expose himself by asking questions, so he stopped talking. He Tian cried and said, Brother Yingzhe, you don't know how worried I am about you. Are you still feeling uncomfortable in any way? I'll call the doctor. I'm fine, Changling said. How long have I been unconscious? It's been half a month since then, and everyone has been worried about you, He Tian said. Fortunately, you're awake, so we can rest assured. He Tian held Huo Yingzhe's face with both hands, looked at the familiar features, closed her eyes happily, and touched Huo Yingzhe's forehead. Changling God raised his eyebrows. When did Yuner become so enthusiastic? Then He Tian touched Huo Yingzhe's cheek again. She doesn't seem to have any skills. The girl in front of him really smelled of Yuner, he would not admit it. No matter her, as long as it's Yuner, he likes her. Yuner like this now made him even more ecstatic. If they could have been so enthusiastic back then, they wouldn't have ended like that. This was the first time for Changling High God to be so close to a human being. Even Yuner back then only stared at him from a distance and missed him silently. This was what he had dreamed of, and now he finally did it, and it was as wonderful as he imagined. One is sentimental and the other is intentional. The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 490. Chapter 490 Reincarnation is all mine. 488. He Tian slept on the side and said with a blushing face, Brother Yingzhe, can you tell me what happened? The little spinner was talking in a confused way, I couldn't understand it. After the god of Changling regained his senses, he had already made some calculations in his mind, but he had just realized that he had arrived in another dimension, the human world. He hasn't fully accepted the memory of this body yet, and he doesn't know what happened, let alone why he was injured. However, this does not cause any hardship to the 10,000-year-old fox. God Changling pinched his eyebrows and said softly, I'm a little tired. When He Tian heard this, she quickly sat up and said, yes, you have a good rest. If anything happens, we'll talk about it tomorrow. As he said this, he was about to go down and make room for Huo Yingzhi so that he could sleep more comfortably. But as soon as he sat up, God Changling hugged his slender waist and said, "Stay with me." Hearing this, he Tian blushed and said, "Isn't this is not good. After all, we are not married yet. Getting married should mean getting married." The god of Changling understands instantly. "It's okay, I miss you." Changling High God hugged He Tian and lay down, "Go to sleep." He Tian nodded and said, "Brother Yingzhi, you should go to bed early." God Changling gently held He Tian and let her face rest quietly on his chest. Back then, when he heard that she was getting married and the groom was not him, he almost went crazy and wanted to destroy everything. Seeing her wearing a delicate red wedding dress, standing in front of him and being destroyed into ashes, he felt like a knife. Her tears fell into his hands, still warm, but the clouds had disappeared. He used a drop of his blood to protect a ray of her spiritual will. However, during the battle between gods and demons, he failed to keep it and made her disappear. He spent countless years searching, but could not find it. Unexpectedly, 10,000 years later, he fought with the new Demon King. When the Demon King was wiped out, he was also seriously injured. He was severely injured and fell unconscious. When I woke up again, I came to this place. Because Huo Yingzhi woke up, He Tian felt relaxed. Coupled with the fatigue and worries of these days, He Tian fell asleep quickly in the familiar warm embrace. Changling High God, after He Tian fell asleep, he moved his fingers twice and performed a magic formula, and He Tian fell into a deep sleep. Changling God gently kissed He Tian on the face, covered He Tian with a blanket, and then said softly, "Come out." At this time, the little spin turtle climbed out of the void barrier and lay on the ground. A black spinning turtle as big as a millstone climbed to the side of the Changling God and choked with sobs, "Master, you are finally back, Xiaoxian is finally waiting for you, Wu." Changling High God frowned, looked at the spin turtle, felt the breath of the spin turtle, and asked, "Didn't I ask you to control the river at the bottom of the river? Why are you here?" "Whoa." The little spinner turtle was very excited, "Master, this is a long story." "Ahem," Lord Changling narrowed his eyes and became unhappy, "then you should keep your story short." Seeing that his master was unhappy, the little spin turtle quickly calmed down and said, "Master, should I use my spiritual consciousness to teach you to eat?" "Yeah," Changling said. Then the little spin turtle transmitted everything he knew to the head of Changling God. The god of Changling closed his eyes, sat on the hospital bed and meditated, and his consciousness was receiving this information. Scenes appeared in his mind. He knew the origin of this body, and also knew that Yunur was not exactly Yunur, but a woman named He Tian. His essence and blood are very familiar to him, and He Tian is the reincarnation of Yunur, so there is no mental obstacle at all in accepting He Tian. At the same time, he also felt another spiritual thought struggling, and it turned out that he had also been reincarnated. Snake King, Changling Lord squinted his eyes and looked at He Tian's ankle. Then, before lifting the blanket on He Tian's feet, he turned to the little turtle and said, "Turn your head. Don't look." He Tian's top and bottom belong to him and no one is allowed to see it. "Yes, master," the little spinner quickly lowered his head, never letting his master know that he had often seen He Tian's feet before. Facing He Tian's ankle, Changling God made a magic formula and recited a few words. In the blink of an eye, the Snake King had appeared in the ward. The Snake King looked at Huo Yingzhi unruly, or in other words, the god of Changling. "Are you a spiritual snake from the demon world?" Changling Lord frowned, "Why did you set up a space barrier there?" The Snake King raised his chin and said, "What a coincidence." Changling God smiled, stretched out his white and slender fingers, did some calculations, and then said with a sullen face, You actually used Yunus' blood to help you practice. At this moment, he wanted to kill this spiritual snake that didn't know whether to live or die. The Snake King also has the kind of temperament that is not afraid of death, especially when facing Huo Yingjia, or the god of Changling. He is unwilling to bow his head. So what? She did it voluntarily, I didn't force her. If you don't believe me, you can ask the little turtle, the Snake King said calmly. Although he had the power to resist in front of this person, he knew that in the end you will definitely lose. Yes, Master Little Spin Turtle said, the Snake King still has some memories. Huh, God Changling looked at the Snake King. Even though the Snake King is unwilling in his heart, people have to bow their heads under the eaves. In the demon world that believes in respecting the strong, if faced with more powerful forces, if you don't want to die, you have no choice but to be defeated. The Snake King transmitted the events of Hetianation's previous life to the mind of the god of Changling. Lord Changling squinted his eyes flashing with a cold light that could not be turned away. These people actually tortured his sweetheart like this. He wants these people to die miserably. Even though he can't use magic power, he can use human rights to deal with all those who hurt Yunur. Now you know what's going on, right? Snake King said, you should thank me for coming back. Thank you, Changling Lord sneered, you little snake, don't try to get your hands on my Yunur. Otherwise, you are going to kill me. Are you? Snake King asked back, she is Tian Tian now, not Yunur. Humph, Changling Shangshang said, I don't care about this. Anyway, whether it's Yunur or Tian Tian, they are all mine. The Snake King was depressed and dejected, and said, okay, I'm just wishful thinking. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Sweetness of the Seventies. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 491. 489. On the one hand, he was afraid of the power of the god of Changling. What made the Snake King give up so quickly was that he Tian Tian had never had any feelings for him between men and women from the beginning to the end. It had always been his wishful thinking. You are indeed wishful thinking, God Changling sprinkled a handful of salt on the Snake King's bloody wound again. You. The Snake King was angry when someone said that. He has given up, what else does he want to do? Bring it here, Changling Lord stretched out his hand. The Snake King asked in confusion, what? Those 2 pieces of jade, Changling Shangshan said, those things belong to him and Yunur, not this spiritual snake. The Snake King was stunned. Although he was reluctant to part with it, this jade pendant was not his and he could no longer occupy it. He had no choice but to give the jade pendant to Changling God. You can leave, Changling said, don't stay there, I'm not happy. The Snake King felt aggrieved and had no choice but to turn into a shadow and float out of the room. The little spinner turtle looked at its master with admiration and said, Master, you are so awesome. Changling God looked at the little turtle and said, it's time for you to go in. Yes, Master, the little spinning turtle entered the barrier, but the god of Changling made some moves, and the little spinning turtle now knows nothing about the outside. The god of Changling put the 2 jade pendants in the pockets of the hospital gown, lay down next to He Tian Tian, and gently hugged He Tian Tian to sleep. He Tian Tian slept soundly all night until dawn. When Zhao Huan came to check the ward, he saw a man and a woman sleeping together. Fortunately, the 2 of them still had their clothes on, otherwise she, the sister-in-law, would have had a bad resemblance to her when she saw such a scene. How embarrassing. He Tian Tian woke up and saw Zhao Huan. She quickly got up and said, Sister-in-law, you are here. He Tian Tian looked embarrassed, looking for something to say while adjusting her clothes. Haha, Zhao Huan covered his mouth and smiled, you must be too tired to take care of your second brother, it's okay. Zhao Huan still wanted to make a joke, but suddenly she saw Huo Yingzhe yawning and rubbing his eyes with his hands, as cute as a child waking up. Second brother, are you awake? Zhao Huan said excitedly. Great, great. Second brother, I will check your body right now. Huo Yingzhe, who had just woken up and was still a little dazed, suddenly saw a woman rushing toward him. He quickly got off the bed and hid behind He Tian, saying, "Bad guy, bad woman." As soon as these words came out, Zhao Huan and He Tian looked at each other, dumbfounded. What's wrong with him? Zhao Huan frowned, feeling as if Huo Yingzhe didn't recognize her. He Tian was also puzzled. She turned around and took Huo Yingzhe's arm and said, "Brother Yingzhe, what's wrong with you? You were fine at night, but why are you like this now? Are you the same as me?" Joke. Huo Yingzhe looked at He Tian and whispered, "Tian." He Tian felt relieved when Huo Yingzhe called her name, at least she still remembered her. Just remember her. Brother Yingzhe, you are so mean, you actually joked with me. He Tian smiled and said, "That's my sister-in-law, coming to check your body." "I don't want it," Huo Yingzhe said, continuing to evade. "Brother Yingzhe, you are sick and need to check your health." He Tian said, come on, I will help you sit down on the bed, be obedient." Zhao Huan was shocked and confused. She didn't see Huo Yingzhe last night, but she was a doctor. From Huo Yingzhe's current behavior, she concluded that Huo Yingzhe seemed to have become stupid. Silly. What a cruel thing. For such a smart person to turn from a genius to a fool, this is even more shocking than Huo Yingzhe's death. "Then you stay with me." Huo Yingzhe grabbed He Tian's hand and refused to let go, like a child who was deeply afraid of the outside world and people. He Tian was startled and realized that Huo Yingzhe was different. Why did her Yingzhe brother become like a child? And I don't know my sister-in-law Zhao Huan anymore. "Okay, I'll accompany you." He Tian comforted the frightened Huo Yingzhe. "Sister-in-law, please check brother Yingzhe." "Okay." Zhao Huan was also worried. He couldn't let his brother-in-law become a fool. Zhao Huan learned from her husband that the Huo family's current situation was largely due to the foresight of her brother-in-law. If Huo Yingzhe is stupid, it will be a great loss to the Huo family, especially at such a sensitive time. Zhao Huan examined Huo Yingzhe, but Huo Yingzhe kept avoiding Zhao Huan's movements as if he was scared, and looked at He Tian with sad eyes. "Sister-in-law, what's going on?" He Tian asked hurriedly. "Why would brother Yingzhe behave like this?" He Tian didn't dare to say the word idiot. Zhao Huan shook his head and said, "I don't know either. I'll ask the teacher to come over and take a look. I'll also have someone notify my family and ask them to come to the hospital as soon as possible." Zhao Huan went to see Dr. Zhang and asked the bodyguard outside to deliver the letter to his home. Dr. Zhang heard that Huo Yingzhe had woken up and hurried over to check and inquire. The result was, the brain was violently shaken, which may have damaged some brain nerves. The explanation seems reasonable but vague. After all, there is no data to support it, so we can only listen to Dr. Zhang's speculation. Dr. Zhang is good at Chinese medicine. After checking Huo Yingzhe's pulse, he found that Huo Yingzhe's body was healthier than the average person, but he still couldn't change the fact that his brain was abnormal. If possible, Dr. Zhang really wanted to pry open Huo Yingzhe's head and see what was going on inside. The Huo family got the news that Huo Yingzhe had woken up, and the whole family came to the hospital. Mrs. Huo and Zhang Lifang even wiped away tears all the way. Zhao Huan didn't tell the bodyguard about Huo Yingzhe's situation, so everyone didn't know that Huo Yingzhe had become a fool. Everyone entered the ward together. Huo Yingzhe was sitting on the hospital bed eating the meal He Tian bought. He Tian feeds him a mouthful, and he eats a mouthful. Sometimes, when He Tian is slow, he will hum. My son, Zhang Lifang cried with joy when she saw Huo Yingzhe waking up, and threw herself on Huo Yingzhe's bed. Huo Yingzhe trembled with fear, got under the blanket and covered his head. Zhang Lifang was stunned and said, Son, what's wrong with you? Why are you hiding? Let mom see you. If you don't come out, you won't come out, Huo Yingzhe said repeatedly, and kicked his two big exposed feet. Mrs. Huo was so frightened that she stopped crying. She looked at the old man and said, Yingzhe, it can't be. No, my son is fine, Zhang Lifang said loudly. She would never allow others to call her son a fool. Her son is so good, her son is a genius. Huo Jekan supported his wife, who was greatly stimulated, worried that she would not be able to bear it and collapse. Mr. Huo and Mrs. Huo couldn't bear it, so they walked outside and cried silently. The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 492. 490. Zhao Huan told the two of them Dr. Zhang's diagnosis. Mrs. Huo finally couldn't help crying, her dear grandson. Mr. Huo seemed to have been drained of his energy all of a sudden. His face was ugly, but he was just trying to keep calm. Something like this happened to the Huo family, and everything was in chaos. He couldn't fall down. When he fell, the Huo family was in chaos. Those who didn't like the Huo family, or those who had a festival, began to attack the Huo family. Seeing Zhang Lifang being so sad, He Tian quickly explained, Aunt Zhang, things are not as bad as you thought. Brother Yingzhe still recognized me when he woke up in the middle of the night. He spoke clearly, that's not the case. After hearing this, Zhang Lifang's body started to sob from crying. Tian, what do you mean by this? I don't know why, but brother Yingzhe is normal at night and recognizes me. When he wakes up, he is like a child and doesn't recognize people, but his speech is still organized, He Tian explained. She was embarrassed to say that they almost had sex yesterday. Her personal experience told her that Huo Yingzhe was a normal man. Whether mentally or physically, everything is normal. At that time, she was immersed in the joy of Huo Yingzhe waking up and coveted Huo Yingzhe's strong and warm embrace. She once forgot to call the doctor to check. When he remembered it, he was stopped by Huo Yingzhe again. Lifang, please don't do this first. No matter what, he is still our son, Huo Jekan comforted him. He was more sad than anyone else that his most proud son had become like this. However, if you are sad, what can you do? It is of no use to my son. Zhang Lifang wiped her tears, looked at He Tian holding the bowl in her hand, and said, Yingzhe, come out to eat. Don't come out. Huo Yingzhe hid under the blanket and refused to come out. He Tian has been used to such childish Huo Yingzhe since the morning. She placed the bowl on the table next to the hospital bed and said softly, Brother Yingzhe, there is delicious egg custard in the bowl. If you don't eat it, I will eat it. I finished it. Hearing this, Huo Yingzhe exposed half of his head and hesitated whether to come out. Okay, let's eat first and introduce you to friends later. Okay, He Tian said, coaxing Huo Yingzhe. Huo Yingzhe glanced at all the people in the ward and said in a low voice, then let them out. Zhang Lifang felt sad. This was her son, how could he not recognize her? Son, I am mom, Zhang Lifang said, mom is worried about you. Yingzhe, I'm dad. Huo Jekan couldn't help it anymore and said hurriedly. His son no longer recognizes him as his father. Huo Yingzhe looked at them in confusion, then pulled the blanket over his head and said, I don't know you, you go out. If you don't go out, I won't eat. He Tian is in a dilemma and is too embarrassed to drive people away. He Jingyu saw Huo Yingzhe dumbfounded, and he was also dumbfounded. Will his daughter have to live with a fool her whole life? Mr. Huo was behind, very sad, and said, everyone go out, let Yingzhe eat first. The world is huge, and eating is the biggest thing. Eat your fill first. Mr. Huo spoke, and everyone had no choice but to go out. Huo Jekan supported his grieving wife and walked at the end, turning his head from time to time, hoping to hear his son's voice urging him to stay. However, they were destined to be disappointed. As soon as they reached the door, Huo Yingzhe showed his head and said, "Close the door." He Tian was speechless. Brother Yingzhe had stabbed everyone in the heart again. "Come on, everyone is gone, come out and eat quickly," he Tian said, picking up the bowl again. Huo Yingzhe was very obedient this time, sitting upright and opening his mouth. "Is it delicious?" he Tian asked curiously when she saw that Huo Yingzhe was eating deliciously. Huo Yingzhe nodded and said, "It's delicious, you can eat it too. When you're full, I'll eat again," he Tian said. At this time, he Tian's stomach made a gurgling sound, which made her look slightly embarrassed. She was busy taking care of Huo Yingzhe all morning, and she didn't have time to eat. Seeing this, Huo Yingzhe's stomach would growl like this when he was hungry. He pushed away the spoon he Tian handed him and said, "Tian, you can eat too." "I won't eat, you eat first," he Tian said, not wanting Huo Yingzhe to starve. Such a proud and outstanding brother Yingzhe has become like this. He Tian doesn't want to wrong Huo Yingzhe anymore. "If you don't eat, I won't eat either." Huo Yingzhe turned away and stopped eating. He Tian had to take a bite and said, "I ate it, and you eat it too." When Huo Yingzhe saw he Tian eating, he opened his mouth, took another bite, and said, "One bite for me, one bite for you, okay, Tian." Facing Huo Yingzhe's pure eyes, he Tian couldn't refuse. However, the two of them shared a spoon and a bowl of rice, which seemed a bit too close. "Hey, forget it, she can eat a few more bites for Huo Yingzhe, she doesn't care about that." "Are you full?" he Tian asked in a low voice when she saw that the food in the bowl was gone. She had eaten more than a dozen mouthfuls and was worried that Huo Yingzhe would not eat enough. After hearing this, Huo Yingzhe nodded and said, "Tian, I'm full." Seeing that Huo Yingzhe became more talkative, he Tian whispered, "Brother Yingzhe, look, all of your relatives who came in just now are your relatives. You were injured before, hurt your head, and you can't remember them for the time being. Let's let them will they come in." After hearing this, Huo Yingzhe shook his head and said, "No, they are not good, they keep crying." Where has he Tian's speechless, gentle, and considerate brother Yingzhe gone? "Brother Yingzhe, do you still remember what happened at night?" he Tian asked cautiously. "The contrast between now and last night is so big that it is a bit unacceptable." Huo Yingzhe rolled his eyes, shook his head and said, "I can't remember. It's over. I have seen it in a TV series before, in which the hero and heroine often lose their memory. I can't remember what happened last night during the day. This should be considered amnesia, right? And brother Yingzhe doesn't recognize his family anymore, and he has lost his memory. Then I tell them not to cry. Can you let them in?" he Tian whispered, "Brother Yingzhe is the best. They are your relatives, and they are very good to you like me. You can't remember it for a moment. If they don't let them in, they will be even more sad." Huo Yingzhe thought for a while, as if he had figured it out, nodded and said, "Okay, I hate people crying the most." Such a little fussy Huo Yingzhe left he Tian speechless. Even when he was a child, brother Yingzhe was not so squeamish and pretentious. He Tian poured some boiling water for Huo Yingzhe to drink before going out. He Tian came out, and everyone looked at he Tian. "Grandma Huo, Grandpa Huo, Aunt Zhang, Uncle Huo, Dad, you can go in, but don't cry. Brother Yingzhe doesn't like to see people cry," he Tian said, "although he doesn't remember everyone, I have told him he and everyone are his relatives. Let him think about it slowly and feel it. Brother Yingzhe will definitely miss you." Notice to all readers, there are 3 updates a day, and the update times are fixed at 7 a.m., 12 noon, and 6 p.m.